Today, we're diving into intelligence, but maybe not in the way you're used to thinking about it. We're not talking about test scores. We're talking about the little things, our day-to-day habits, because psychological research shows that our thinking habits can actually reveal a ton about our cognitive abilities. So, let's get into what those habits really are.
So let me just ask you this straight up. When you hear the word intelligence, does your mind immediately jump to things like IQ tests or grades? I think for a lot of us, that's been the default for a long, long time. But what if that's just a tiny piece of the puzzle?
See, according to psychology, the real clues to our intelligence are hiding in plain sight. They're in how we process information, how we react when we're challenged, and how we engage with new ideas. Every single day. These habits start to form a pattern, almost like a cognitive signature.
So, what we're going to do is break down 5 specific habits that psychology often links to, let's say, weaker cognitive patterns. And it's so important to remember, these are not character flaws, okay? They're just observable habits that might be holding us back from our own growth.
First one up is a big one, passively accepting information. This is when you hear something or read something and, well, you just accept it. No questions asked, no second thought.
Now, here's the contrast that's so interesting. Strong analytical minds have this natural itch, this curiosity. They can't help but ask, who's saying this? What's their angle? And where's the actual proof? Just accepting claims at face value, especially when they just confirm what we already think, is basically a mental shortcut that lets us skip the hard work of critical thinking. Okay, habit number 2, the impulse to interrupt. Oh man, we all know someone who does this, right? Or, hey, maybe sometimes we're that person. But it turns out it's more than just being a little rude. It can actually point to something going on a bit deeper. And this quote just nails it. This isn't just about manners. Cognitive patience. That's the key phrase. It's the ability to pause your own train of thought for a minute so you can fully absorb and really understand what someone else is trying to say, especially if it's a complex idea. So think about it like this. In a conversation, are you truly listening to process what's being said? Or are you just waiting to speak? Just kind of waiting for a gap so you can jump in with your point? When we prioritize our own response over really understanding, we're probably missing the most valuable parts of the whole exchange. Real listening, it's an active cognitive workout. Let's move on to our third habit, playing the blame game. This is that pattern of constantly pointing the finger at everybody and everything else when things go wrong, without ever once looking in the mirror.
Psychology has a name for this. It's called externalization. And when someone never hits pause to think, okay, what was my role in this? What decision did I make? They completely block their own path to learning anything. Self-awareness is a huge piece of intelligence, and without it, our intellectual growth just kind of grinds to a halt. All right, number 4, avoiding mental effort. Now, this isn't about, refusing to solve some giant impossible equation. It's much more subtle. It's about consistently sidestepping the small daily brain teasers that actually build our mental muscle. We're talking about things like reading an article carefully from start to finish instead of just skimming the headlines, or trying to solve a small problem on your own before you immediately ask for help, or even just starting to learn a new skill. These are like the cognitive push-ups that keep our minds in shape. And finally, our 5th habit, which might be the most crucial of them all, a lack of curiosity. This is when that little voice inside that asks, why? Or, wait, how does that work? Just goes silent. And psychology backs this up big time. Curiosity is one of the most powerful drivers of our intellectual growth. When we're genuinely curious, our brains literally light up their learning systems. It makes it so much easier to absorb and hold on to information. Without that initial spark, knowledge just stays on the surface. So we've gone through these 5 habits, but what's the common thread here? What ties them all together? Why do they point to weaker thinking? Let's dig into the why behind it all. And this, right here, is the main idea from the source material. It's a really powerful way to reframe how we see intelligence. It's not some static library of facts you've memorized. It's a dynamic, active process of how you find, question, and use knowledge. And this is the process that's really at stake here, our cognitive development. Every single one of those 5 habits, being passive, interrupting, blaming, avoiding effort, and lacking curiosity, is like a roadblock to that development. They are choices that stop our brain from getting the workout it needs to get stronger. I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? It's basically use it or lose it for our brains.
Every single time we choose the path of least mental resistance, we miss out on a chance to build a little more cognitive muscle.
Now, look, all of this might sound a little intense, but please don't think of it as some kind of final judgment, because the most important part of all of this is that simply becoming aware of these things, well, that's the first step to making a change.
And this right here is the good news. This is the hopeful part. None of this is set in stone. These are just learned patterns of thinking. And anything that can be learned can be unlearned and replaced with something better.
But there's a catch, and it's a pretty big one. Real, lasting change only happens if you're willing to get a little uncomfortable, to actually question your own assumptions, to practice listening more than you speak, and to start embracing that mental effort instead of running from it. The power is literally in your hands.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. After hearing about these 5 patterns, did one of them kind of stand out to you, maybe resonate a little bit? What is one small thing you could challenge yourself to do, starting today, to build a stronger, more curious, more engaged mind?